Welcome back, everyone, to the ADHD Guide to Game. In this episode, I'm going to be going over my settings, my mods, and my optimizations that I make to get the game to run as smoothly as possible. And apparently, we are getting shot at right now. And there he is. So first of all, let's start off with my specs. I have a 5900X, 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM, and a 4070 Ti Super, but the GPU might not make as big of a difference as you might think. I originally upgraded from a 2080 Super, and when I did so, I gained only about 3% in performance, so the CPU is the major limiting factor in this game, and thanks a lot for shooting me again. You know, maybe I shouldn't have done this right next to the bandit camp. Alright, so first go to settings, and then under basic, I play in 1440p, 80 FOV, 0.65 HUD FOV, and as far as basic light settings, I typically do have my color saturation turned up quite high. That's just the way I like it to be. But now going into advanced, VSync sometimes helps people when it comes to stutters, so you can try enabling that, see what the frame times look like for you. Stalkers use headlamps. If you're on a lower end system, I do recommend turning this off, mainly because of like when you're in raw stock and other places at night, all those headlamps cause major lag. So here's rendering distance. Now the thing is, these move in chunks, so what I'm going to tell you to do is go to the max and then go 1 2 3 backwards for world, static objects, you go 1 back from full, and then I have dynamic objects at the max because this is what controls whether or not you see an NPC or a mutant in the distance. So this is actually very important to have maxed out. Finally, distant shadow culling, you want this enabled. You really aren't going to notice the difference in visual quality, but you will notice a couple frames here and there. As far as rendering quality, these should be the default for Gamma, so max texture, object, texture, MIP bias, anisotropic filtering, that should all be normal. As you can see, we can't use anti-aliasing or SMAA due to a mod called 3D shader scopes, and even if you wanted to use anti-aliasing, it doesn't really work well in Gamma, and it does cause huge performance loss, so you don't want to enable it here. If you still want anti-aliasing, what you want to do is go to your NVIDIA control panel or your Radeon Adrenalin software and enable it through there. Detail bump, steep parallax, tessellation, I have all of this disabled. I'm sure I could enable it and it wouldn't make that big of a difference, but my goal is stability. I do not want stutters throughout my videos since I'm a content creator, so that is what I value above everything else. Now, grass density. This right here is the FPS killer. So let me give you an example. First of all, I'm going to turn this up most of the way. So let's put it right there, apply. Now keep in mind, before I was getting about 120 FPS. Now if you look at the top left, I'm getting about 50, 60, and it is a lot fuller and it looks a lot nicer. But one setting that you can actually change that doesn't affect FPS that much is the grass size. So if I go into here and I raise this to 1, go ahead and apply that, you'll notice that we only went down about 5 FPS, 7 FPS. So what you actually want to do is lower your density and raise your grass height if you want a more fuller looking world. So for example, you don't need this crazy grass density. So instead, what we can do is, let's say grass size of 0.8 and then lower this to like maybe right here. Go ahead and click apply. And now it still looks quite full. And now we're back above 128, 130 FPS. So as you can see, you do want to kind of like mess with that. But yes, if you are having FPS problems, it is probably because of grass density right here. This is the biggest FPS killer. Now under lighting, I'm pretty sure this is all Gamma default, but just in case it isn't, as you can see, we got light and distance at 0.5, shadow quality at 1. We have actor shadows, sun shadow quality on medium. For sun rays, I'm not sure if this actually matters because I'm pretty sure screen space shaders replaces this setting, but I'm not 100% sure. I just have it on volumetric, low. I think these are definitely default. SSAO doesn't really work in this because it is replaced by screen space shaders, so go ahead and turn that off. SSAO quality off. Volumetric light you can have on. And then down here, I disable soft particles, motion blur. Wet surfaces I leave on. Volumetric smoke I leave off. All right, now that is all of my normal settings, but real quick, let's go into MCM right here. And then if you scroll down all the way, you're going to see screen space shader settings right here. If you go under this and go to weapon depth of field, I recommend turning all of this to 0 and disabling all of this. This gets rid of that freaking blurry effect, you know, when you're aiming down sights and the peripheral and everything. I always find that to be annoying. I get a million comments about it on live streams about how do I disable it? How do I disable it? This is how. Go to weapons depth of field, turn everything to 0, disable all of this. Screen space shader settings is also where you can claw back a bit of FPS if you're on a lower end system. As you can see, you can change the quality. So for example, on ambient occlusion, low, you see all of these you can change. Now, the reason my game looks all bright and colorful and yours probably doesn't by default is because I do reinstall a couple of mods, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Once you're in the Gamma mod organizer, all you're going to do is go down here to the filter and type in grass. There are 2 mods we're going to be focused on, number 289 and number 388. First is grass tweaks. This is what allows us to change the color of the leaves and trees. So we're going to right click and click reinstall mod. Give it a second to extract the files. Once this is up, you're going to click next, and as you can see, we can choose between autumn, summer, winter, and spring. Spring is what I use, so we're going to click on that and click install. Once this comes up, you're going to want to click replace, not merge, replace. After you do that, you must reinstall number 388, which is the LOD compatibility. So right click, reinstall, and you're going to want to choose the setting you chose before. So we're going to click next, and then spring, install, and replace once again. Even with these changes, you might notice the game has a bit of a gloomy filter to it. And the reason why is because of a mod called Atmospherics. Now, down in the video description in the pinned comment, I'm going to have a link to this LUT file, which is going to get rid of that kind of gloomy filter that everything has. So once you get this file, all you're going to do is go back to your mod organizer. You're going to type in Atmospherics right here. We're going to right click on it, click open and explore. And once this comes up, we're going to go to game data and then scripts. And in here, you're going to find the SSFX LUT file right here. And all you're going to do is grab this, drag it in here, and click replace. That's all you need to do, and that will get rid of that gloomy filter to everything. Now, before we boot back up the game, if you're one of the people that have a high average FPS, but you keep having a lot of stutters, one thing you can do is go down here to the filter once again and type in stutter, and this will come up with a turn this on if you stutter. This is the stutter fix. Now, what this is going to do is it will lower your overall average FPS. However, it should help with stutters. Now, keep in mind, it doesn't help for everyone. So what I recommend you do is use some kind of program like MSI Afterburner, Riva Tuner, or anything that shows your FPS and your average FPS, and go around and see, you know, what your FPS is before and after you enable this, and whether or not you have less or more stutters, because this does not work for everyone. Now, once you boot up your game, it's going to look like this. As you can see, it's not as green. So what you're going to do is go to your settings, your basic light settings, and then we're going to turn up the color saturation. I typically like it at 1.5 to 1.7. I think anything above looks way too much. So keep it around, I'd say 1.5. There's one more change that you can make to try to get higher FPS. However, once again, it does not work for everyone. So keep that in mind. All right, you're going to open up Task Manager, and you're going to go to this X-Ray Monolith Engine. Right click, go to details, it'll bring you here. You're going to right click on the anomaly exe, click set affinity, and then disable core 0. Once it's disabled, click OK, and then go back in game and see whether or not it feels better for you. Now, once again, it is highly recommended that you use some type of tracking software to figure out what your FPS was before and afterwards, because there's a lot of people with a lot of placebo. For me personally, I might get like a tiny bit more average FPS with core 0 disabled, but as far as stutters go, which is my main concern, it doesn't seem to make that big of a difference. So it's not something I'm worried about. Okay. Now, let's say you really wanted to get rid of stutters, because as I said earlier, upgrading my GPU didn't really do anything to my average FPS or my stutters or anything. The one thing that you can upgrade that'll actually help is buying an AMD X3D CPU. I am not kidding. For some reason, this game loves X3D CPUs. It loves that extra cache, and while your average FPS might not go up, your stutters will definitely go down. I have a save file that I use for benchmarking, and I send it to a bunch of people that use different X3D CPUs, from the 5700 X3D to the 9800 X3D that just came out, and we were able to test before they upgraded and after they upgraded, and the difference is insane. Now, obviously, that upgrade isn't going to get rid of all the stutters in the game. Keep in mind, this is an engine that was originally made in 2007 and has over 500 mods being added to it. Now, before I wrap up this video, there is actually one major change that I've made to my settings recently, and that is a completely different grass mod by Pantsride. As you can see, this is Aiden's grass tweaks, and what I dislike about it, it's not bad or anything, but what I dislike is there's not a huge amount of variety, you know? It's just like slightly different colors, and that is what I like Pantsride for. So let me go show you that mod real quick. So we're back in Mod Organizer 2, and all we're going to do is untick Aiden's grass tweaks and turn on Grass and Trees by Pantsride. Now, if you want to install this mod for yourself, the link will be down in the video description. Just follow the instructions. It is insanely simple to do. But out of the way, let's now boot back up the game, and I'll show you the difference. Now, as you can see, this is one of the areas that I like to show off for Pantsride's Grass and Trees. Look at the variety. Look at the different colors. This is an army warehouse, and I love this so much. This area plus Red Forest, which I'll show you guys in a second, is why I use this mod. And here we are in Red Forest. Look at that color, that deep red. See, this looks great. And if we go into demo record mode, just looking at the colors of the trees and the plants in between and everything, I really do like this mod. I cannot wait for the next update for it. Look at all this. And by the way, since this is an ADHD guide, I forgot to mention this earlier, but if you're going to the Miracle Machine and Brain Scorcher and you're really annoyed about the flashlight flickering over and over again, you can turn that off. Go into the mod configuration menu and find glow sticks. There it is right there. And there you go. Disable Brain Scorcher and Miracle Machine flickering. It is just as easy as that. All right, that's going to be it for this episode of ADHD Guide to Gamma. In the video description and in the pinned comments, I will also have a link to an Imgur that has all of my settings. That way you can just click on it and follow it there. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.